Hey everybody, I'm Christina Payne, and this is For the Love of Sports. Today I'll be joined by the senior NBA writer for the Undefeated. So today I'll be joined by Marc Spears. How are you doing?
Good. I got my coffee. I'm ready to go. How
You
are
are
you?
ready to go. I'm good. So I just told everyone how you are the senior writer for the Undefeated. Can you just explain to everybody what the Undefeated is about?
Well, first of all, I got to give a shout out to your father, uh, Charles Payne. That's my guy,
Yes.
Net Scout. I don't know if you want all your family business out there,
Oh
but
no, it's
he's a
okay. Yes, shout him out.
great confidant. Good person to throw stuff by. Always
Yes.
has an encouraging word. So sure he did a great job raising you as well.
Oh, thank
So
thank
just
you.
shout out to him.
Oh, thank you.
But no, as senior NBA writer for ESPN's The Undefeated. I covered NBA.
Mhm.
This is my 23rd season covering NBA.
Uh,
And but what's different about this job, which I've had for 5 years,
mhm,
is we write about culture and sports,
mhm.
and race, and sometimes we write about uncomfortable things. So obviously we're up before George Floyd's tragic death.
Yeah.
We're writing about race. We're writing about um, sexism, racism, social injustice,
Mhm.
and when we first started, I think there was a lot of people that didn't think that we should exist.
Mm.
That no man, there's no real racism in this country. What are you
Yeah.
talking about? Like, why are you guys making all this noise?
Mhm.
And certainly as we've seen the last couple of years that there's been some new undefeateds that kind of popped up
Yeah.
because race and sports, culture stories, and all that are certainly a huge deal, a big deal, and of a lot of interest now.
Yeah. No, that's what I was gonna say. Your work, you're consistently promoting and telling the stories of Black folks. So I was gonna ask, like, have you ever experienced any backlash from that?
Um, Somebody jokingly said to me, "Oh, you don't write about any white players, huh?" I said, "Well, ain't but five of them, But no, I joking back.
uh-huh.
Um, yeah, I mean, I think oftentimes, I think with the NBA, most of the players are black, so
Mhm.
the black question doesn't come up so much. It's the matter of what I write about.
Right.
You know, talking to Jalen Brown about social injustice.
Mhm.
Talking to people about George Floyd. I was in the bubble for 90 days where social justice was this huge deal.
Yeah.
Um, Bringing up off the beaten path stories that perhaps people, haven't thought of, that, lack of white players in the league. I was joking about it earlier, but
Mhm.
in terms of white Americans, there aren't. So a lot of topics that I talk about are things that you like, oh, I hadn't thought about it that way, or why are you
Right.
bringing that up?
Right.
Why are you
No.
talking about that? So it's inevitable that, you know, everybody's not going to like what I write.
Yeah.
Um, but I'm not writing columns. I'm writing stories. So
Right.
they're factual. Like
Right.
they're not, of my imagination or my opinion. They're like factual stories that
Mhm.
hopefully if you take the time, people take the time to read them, they, can be educated on a lot of fronts on what's happening in this world and
Right.
some of the pain and the triumphs that are happening in the Black community,
Right.
and communities of color all over the world.
Yeah, no, I think that's really cool. And you've worked on so many different dope and varied projects. You know, you've had the
Yeah,
Roundtable, the NBA Players Diaries, you authored
yeah.
As Real as It Gets. I was going to ask, were all of those your ideas, all of those projects?
Yes and no. Yes and no.
Okay. Uh-huh.
Um, we have a great video team led by a woman by the name of Sharon Matthews. So sometimes, we collaborate on stuff. I have uh, hoop stories, which is just basically me telling funny hoop stories from my career. It
Uh-huh.
was actually Sharon's idea. The round table was I've done that a few times, which I really enjoyed.
Yeah.
The one I enjoyed the most was NBA Fathers.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and so like that was my idea, but we have
Okay.
a team that implements them. But in terms of what I write, yeah, that they've typically have been my idea, and I think what I love about it is it's not when you read my stories, there's not a lot of X's and O's in there,
Uh-huh.
right? There's not a lot of basketball in there. It's basketball players, but for
Mhm.
example, today I have a story on I hope people could check out an Undefeated on Aaron Gordon from the Denver
Okay.
Nuggets, and he's mixed race kid,
Mhm.
mixed race man. Mom's
Mhm.
white, dad's black,
Mhm.
but his mom worked in Silicon Valley. Silicon Valley from
Yep.
out here for years. Was pretty much one of the few women involved, and being that she had mixed race kids, he certainly was very knowledgeable about the lack of diversity.
Mhm.
And so, like, it's basically Aaron talking about how he used to go to work with his mom and saw nobody that looked like him.
Right. Uh,
And he and his mom would later be inspired to start a program trying to get black kids, kids of color, underprivileged kids into STEM.
wow.
And
Okay.
so they started in Orlando. They're about to move it in Denver, where he's playing for the Nuggets. But kind of
Mhm.
like I talk about basketball at the end. So if that's what you
Yeah.
really, really wanted,
Yeah.
wait for it. You get there. But I just try to do some really good storytelling. Like
Yeah.
I think every person on this earth has a story,
Right.
has something interesting about them that you got to bring it out sometimes.
Mhm.
Um, I was with trying to interview Ja Morant yesterday,
Uh-huh.
last night after the Warriors game, and he certainly as a journalist is kind of challenging because he loves family, which he doesn't really like talking about.
Okay.
He
Okay.
loves his daughter, which he
Mhm.
respectfully doesn't like talking about, and he loves
Uh-huh.
basketball,
Okay.
and he loves watching Martin. Like,
Okay.
but all those things have been written about, so it's like, what do you have to
It's
do to
hard
be
to, yeah.
creative? So
Mhm.
I do try. I came up with an idea.
Okay.
I'm not going to reveal it, but
Yeah, no, yeah, no, it's okay.
yeah, but my point is like everybody has a story. Sometimes you got to dig a little bit to find it, but there's these compelling stories about people that I just love to tell. That obviously there's a lot of great stories about trades and
Mhm.
who might go here. What's going on with Ben Simmons?
Right, right.
Why is Kyrie not taking
Yeah.
the vaccine,
Vaccine.
right?
Mhm.
But to me, I kind of want to go deeper into them as a person and explain like how they became the person they are and what are they inspired by and how when they have this platform do they want to change the world.
Right. Wow, that's really cool. So it sounds like you pretty much have full creative control when you write stories or tell these
Yeah.
stories.
Yes,
Okay.
ma'am. Yeah.
No, that's really cool. So,
So I better be creative, right? Like
yeah.
I say this. I told somebody this the other day. Sometimes I'll literally, this is for the like young journalists out there.
Mhm.
I'll literally just sit somewhere
Mhm.
and like look at the list of NBA teams, right?
Yeah.
And it'll be like, okay, Atlanta Hawks. What's interesting about Trey Young? What's interesting about John Collins? And
Mhm.
like kind of like write these ideas down. Maybe like go team to team and try to
Mhm.
come up with ideas, something that's different.
So you're
That's
always
why,
saying,
yeah, yeah. Well, like following them on social media,
mhm.
seeing what they're saying, like,
Mhm.
like these celebrities and athletes, all of a sudden they put out some quote, the woke in the wake of the people of the dark. And then like,
Uh-huh.
what is he talking about?
Yeah.
And then you go like look into it and it has
Yeah.
some like deeper meaning, like why they said what they said.
Mhm.
So a lot of times also social media can allow me to maybe come up with an idea about
Yeah.
somebody that perhaps I wasn't thinking, but they did something off the beaten path or said something, left some quote from somebody from a tribe or something.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like just something unique that, like, oh, okay, now I
Yeah.
got my idea.
Right. You
So
dig deeper
I
into who
did.
they are. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
So that's how you could oftentimes come out with stuff that is unique and different.
Mhm. Yeah, no, definitely. So I know in the beginning of your career, you covered all sports. So
Yeah,
why did you decide to focus specifically on the NBA?
it's a good question. I initially was just hoping to cover college football and basketball.
Okay.
Um, my first job, I covered Arkansas's football and basketball team for the Tulsa
Mhm.
World.
Mhm.
Then I went to the LA Daily News and I was covering the Angels, back up on the Dodgers, and
Mhm.
covering Cal State Northridge football and basketball. Cal State Northridge doesn't even have football anymore, but they did at the time.
Okay.
And I just remember, like, I played college basketball, not on a
Mhm.
super high level, but I played. And I remember being at an Angels game, and I was sitting next to this guy, and he's like, with every pitch, he was saying what the pitch was.
Okay.
Oh, that's a curveball. That's a
Mhm.
slider. That's a fastball. And I'm like, turned to him. I said, "How you know all the pitches?"
Yeah.
He's like, "Oh, I play college baseball."
Okay.
And when he said that, I'm like, "Why am I covering baseball?"
Okay.
Like, no, I mean, like
Yeah.
that's what I immediately thought. Like,
Right.
why am I covering baseball? I know who. I mean,
Yeah.
it's not that I don't know the other sports. I do,
Right. But you
but
played
I
college
but I
basketball.
play
Mhm.
college basketball. My expertise is basketball,
Mhm.
and it reminded me like when I was when I was covering the Arkansas games, which
Mhm.
says SEC high level.
Mhm.
I was doing the same thing that dude was doing to me at the baseball game.
Okay.
Like I'd be sitting there, I'm like, so and so's about to come out,
Uh-huh.
like the horner, and the reporters would look at me like, how did you?
Yeah. How did you know that?
I know.
Okay.
I could see the coach's reaction. I could tell and it dawned on me that I need to cover basketball. So, and I also found that I enjoyed covering Cal State Northridge's mid-level, mid-major basketball team more than I did Major League Baseball. So
Okay.
then I kind of took a chance. I went to Louisville, Kentucky, where
Mhm.
college basketball, as you know, is really big, and I covered University of Louisville,
Mhm.
University of Kentucky, and all like Kentucky college sports. And there was a guy by the name of Neil Scarborough who I met at the National Association of Black Journalists Convention. At that time, he was a sports editor at the Denver Post, and he just called me out of the blue, and he's like, "Mark, how you doing, man?"
Mhm.
Like, "Oh man, I'm loving it out here. I'm about to be the lead beat writer for University of Louisville
Okay.
football team and men's basketball team and their women's basketball team. You interested in covering the Denver Nuggets? When can I leave?"
Okay.
like all that
Right.
good stuff I was talking about. I was like, shoot, and so I hadn't really thought about covering the NBA,
Mhm.
but the one thing when you cover in college athletics, you're covering still. I still got to cover the football team,
Yeah.
right?
Uh-huh.
It's not a lot of beats that you could cover where it's solely that basketball team, right?
Mhm.
Unless it's maybe Kentucky basketball, but even
Right.
the great Kentucky basketball writers still doing football stuff on the side, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
So with the NBA, it was strictly NBA, and I started covering the Nuggets, and now it's my 23rd season. So I covered the Nuggets for 8 years. Covered Carmelo when he came into the league. Uh, Felt after 8 seasons in Denver that I needed to do something to kind of help my profile a little bit.
Mhm.
Um, so I covered the Boston Celtics for 2 years. I got there when Kevin Garnett and Ray Allen showed up.
Okay.
Covered them for the Boston Globe when they won a championship. It was their first
Mhm.
championship, I believe, since '88, and they haven't won one since.
Mhm.
Covering the Boston Celtics really, for the Globe, really helped my career a lot.
Mhm.
Um, from there, I got a job at Yahoo Sports covering NBA next to Adrian Wojnarowski.
Okay.
And then in 2009, so he was in New York, I was
Mhm.
in Boston. They like, we need somebody to move to the West Coast. I'm like, shoot, I'm going home.
Yeah. I'm ready to
I'm
go.
from the Bay.
Uh-huh.
Moved to Jack London Square to Oakland. Was there. I live in the Oakland area now, but I've been basically in the Bay since 2009, and then in 2016, I got the opportunity to come to the Undefeated, and this is like the best job I ever had.
Aw.
The most mentally stimulating job I've ever had. So,
That's good.
the core of the ESPN, it's the ESPN company. So, I do a lot of television. I just got added as a reporter for NBA Countdown,
Mhm.
and so which I'm very proud of. And
Yeah.
there's always a lot of different TV, and I write for ESPN.com some too.
Mhm.
But at the core, I'm a writer for for the undefeated team.
Undefeated. Well, like you
Yeah.
told me earlier, you are definitely living the dream. Everything
Yeah.
you are living the dream.
Yeah.
So this next question is a two-part question. So if you could cover any story or player in basketball history, what would it be or who would it be? And two, I know the motto at the Undefeated is not conventional, never boring. So from what angle would you cover that story?
You know what? The one thing I missed is I caught Michael Jordan at the end of his career.
Okay.
I got the Washington Wizards
The
Michael
Wizard.
Jordan.
Okay.
Like what's the last time you saw? Only time they ever show a video of Michael Jordan playing for the Wizards is in the 2003 All-Star game when Mariah Carey sang, and it was his last All-Star game. That's
Okay.
it. They never show him in a Wizards jersey, which is like kind of funny. It's like lost tapes. Like the NBA don't want you to see that anymore, right? Like, so I kind of feel like it would have been cool to have covered like his entire career, covered earlier in his career. Like I got to be around for Melo and the arrival of LeBron James, and I saw Kobe Bryant in his prime, and God rest his soul. I got to know him really well. Saw Shaq in his prime, Kevin Garnett. A lot of NBA but Jordan.
I know you got him at the end.
I still remember. Shout out to Vashawn Leonard, who never blocked a shot in his career. Right, he could probably jump over barely a piece of paper. He blocked Jordan's shot and stood over him, and I was like, "Oh man, that's sacrilegious, man! You can't do that." So to answer your question, I wish I could have went back a few years, started a little earlier. Because by the time, people ask me, did you get to know Jordan? I'm like, by the time I started covering the NBA, he didn't have no new friends.
Yeah.
He wasn't trying, he was cool with Will Bond and, those guys, but I was too late in the game. So in terms of covering them from an undefeated standpoint, I think it certainly would have been interesting. There was a lot going on with him. Family tragedy, obviously. His love for golf. Perhaps I could have, tried to tag along with him on the golf course. I believe he has his own golf course now in Palm Beach, Florida. Yeah, he said probably.
Yeah, probably.
I just think that they're, being the shoe stuff, obviously, which is such a big deal now. Like the shoe industry now, which was sparked by him. I think with Jordan, there was a bunch of stories. Maybe even going on the set of Space Jam when he was filming it. He would have been a gem to cover.
Yeah,
for sure. He would have been social media. Just imagine if Jordan had that. I don't know if that'd have been good or bad, but I do think that in terms of covering him, then he played baseball.
There are so many different things you could pick.
Oh
you
my
could pick
goodness!
from.
It's just it's the gift that keeps on giving in terms of stories on him. So yeah, that's the one thing.
Okay.
Dang, I wish I could have, maybe even go back in time and been around when Magic was Magic. That too.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Or Dr. J was Dr. J.
Yeah.
I heard Dr. J today when you interview him, he's a character still. But just to see him in his prime, that probably would have been fun to cover.
That's cool. So I know working in the sports industry, sometimes, opportunities fall through. It might take someone a little bit longer to get to where they want to be. So what's the best piece of advice anyone has ever gave you about, about pursuing your profession?
Well, actually, I knew I wanted to be a sports writer in the 7th grade.
Okay.
I talked to there was a guy from the Warriors that spoke to our class during career day, and the advice he actually gave me was you got to find a job where you combine what you love most in life with what you do best in school. And if you could find that kind of job, find that happy medium, you'll have a job you're happy to go to every day.
Okay.
And I love sports. I love writing. I sucked in science. I sucked in math. I knew where my brain was, you
Okay,
know,
writing was your
creative
thing.
brain.
Uh-huh.
So I combine what I love most with sports and what I do best in writing. And like I've never played in the Super Bowl, but I've been to one. You know,
Okay.
I've probably been to, you know, I've been to the World Series. But as a journalist, I've covered like 20 NBA finals,
Wow.
20 All-Star games. I
Yeah.
covered the Olympics.
Wow.
I've been the host of the Hall of Fame ceremony in a press conference twice.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like
Yeah.
this job has taken me all over the world,
Right.
places I never thought I would go. It's taken me
Mm-hmm.
to India, South Africa,
Mm-hmm.
Turkey, Bosnia. Like I
Mm-hmm.
never thought I'd go to Bosnia,
Bosnia.
you know, right?
Yeah.
Um, and Italy, London, like I could go on and on, Bahamas.
Mm-hmm.
And so I mean, it's certainly been a blessing, you know, to have this opportunity. But I think ultimately, you want a job that you could wake up every day to and be excited about. I have so
Right.
many friends, man, that don't like their job, and the
Mhm.
job pays well, but they
Yeah.
just it's a
It's not
job.
fulfilling for them.
Yeah. Whereas to me, it's like it's competitive. It's a challenge. It's
Yeah.
you know, there's a lot of thinking that I need to bring every day, you know,
Mm-hmm.
in order to do well in this job. And it's like I write about basketball, man.
Right.
Like I write about
Yeah.
basketball for a living. Like my life don't suck. Like
Yeah.
I write about like when you bring that, like I get think about it, I get paid to go to NBA games. Ain't that something?
Living the dream.
Ain't that a
Like,
blessing? Like
yeah.
think about it. Like I get paid to go to NBA games.
To,
Now I gotta
to,
work. Now
yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
just there, but that essentially like it's my job. It's your father's job. Like
Mm-hmm.
that's it's cool.
Yeah.
So it is work now. We work,
Right. No, I know. I know.
but we like you get to be around the best. I get to be around the best basketball players in the world on a daily basis.
Mm-hmm.
That's cool.
And
And
covering the
that
big.
and I got to keep even on those tough days where maybe I didn't get the interview I wanted, or maybe somebody what didn't feel like talking to you that day, or they blew you off, or
Mm-hmm.
I got to remind myself that you
Yeah.
know I cover basketball for a living.
Doesn't get any better.
Yes, ma'am.
Well, thank you so much. Can you tell everybody where we can see you next?
Well, hopefully a lot more on NBA Countdown.
Mm-hmm.
That I think that'll probably grow as as the NFL season starts and more
Mm-hmm.
focus goes on basketball and the show gets a little bigger. So I'm
Yeah.
hopefully doing some nice video pieces that
Yeah.
can run on Christmas and on those big ESPN NBA Countdown shows. Obviously, you can find me on the Undefeated,
You did.
uh, theundefeated.com,
Mm-hmm.
Twitter and Instagram. I'm Mark with a C, J Spears.
Yes.
And man, yeah, please check out my story. Check out the archives. You know, click on my byline, and 'cause I think a lot of the stories I write, you know, hopefully, you know, stand the test of time. They're good feature stories. They're good storytelling,
They are.
and hopefully people can continue to enjoy them and keep coming up with new ideas.
Yes. Well, thank you so much for your time.
No problem. My pleasure. Tell
Yeah.
Pops I say
I will. Well, he'll be watching this, so
hey.
I know he'll be very happy for the shout out.
All right.
And thank
Thank
you
you
to
for having
everybody
me.
watching. This is For the Love of Sports. Stay tuned for the next guest.